Hi, so in this video I'll be showing you how to create an RPN calculator using the Swift programming language. So this is what we have. It's compatible both landscape and portrait, and we're doing it for the iPhone 6s. So to see how an RPN calculator works, it's very different to how a normal calculator would work. So I'm just going to demonstrate. So if I do, for example, 9 plus 9, I'll do 9, enter, 9 plus, that gives us 18. I can see here it's being printed out, and also I'm doing it as doubles, and I'm adding it to the operand stack, and I'm sending the data off to another view controller. So another example, I'll just clear this up. I'll do 9 enter 5 minus, we get the answer 4. I can also do something like 5 sin, we get this answer. Also, if I go onto tape allows us to display our history. So here we get our history calculations. We can go back and forth just like so. We can also use decimals, so I can do 98.5, and with decimals you can only use it once. So I can do 98.5, I can do minus 98.5, enter, 3 plus, we get 95.5. What I can also do is, for example, let's do 9 pi, we get this answer. I can do 5 square root, I can do 6 to the power of 2, we get 36. I can do logarithms, so 5 log to the base of e, and so forth. Also, if I click the second button, we get sin minus 1, cos minus 1, and tan minus 1. We can go back and forth, and we can also see the answers of the sin, cos, and tan, and sin minus 1, cos minus 1, and tan minus 1 using degrees and radians. So for example, if I do 5 sin in radians, we get a different answer, and if I do it in degrees, 5 sin, we get a different answer. And this works the same way with sin minus 1, cos minus 1, and tan minus 1. So here I'm using 3 classes. I'm using, for the tape, I'm using another view controller, which I'm sending the data off to. And with the operations and the numbers, I'm sending them off to the calculator engine, which is a class that I've created as well, which will have all the operations. The view controller is the main view controller, and it will have the basic functionalities such as the enter button, and the calc view controller is where the history calculation will be displayed. So just to show you our storyboard, we have our calculator, and here we have our history. As you can see here, I've used a text view. So if you would like to see how I've created this calculator, please watch on, and also I have the source code for this inside the description below inside my GitHub, so feel free to download it if you want to. So again, if you want to see how this is done, please watch on. Okay, so I'm going to do first of all, so I'm going to create a new Xcode project. I'm going to select single view application. I'm going to name it calculator RPN. And I'm going to use a Swift programming language. I'm going to keep the device as an iPhone, but it's up to you if you want to have it as universal or iPad. I'm going to leave these all unticked since we're not planning to use any core data or UI tests. So I'm going to click on next. I'm going to save it inside my documents. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all build the UI, so the calculator design and layout. So to do this, I'm going to go inside the main storyboard, and we are presented with our main view controller. Also, this view controller is linked with this view controller class that we have here. So the first thing which I'm going to do, I'm going to drag a label, and this label will be at the top here, and it will be where the calculation and the numbers and the answer will be displayed. So I'm just going to drag it, I'm just going to align it to the right hand side, And also what's good about Xcode is it gives you these lines for guidelines, so they're really helpful. So I'm just going to have it about this size. Okay, I'm going to make sure that it's attached to the top. Okay, so I'm just going to remove the label text. I'm going to have it as 0. What I'm also going to do is going to double click. I'm also going to, if I just go here, I'm just going to place it to the right hand side, like how a normal calculator would be. And I'm also just going to increase the size. I'm just going to have it, I think, okay, 33 will do. Okay, so now we have this top base. Now what I'm going to do are the buttons. So I'm going to drag a button. I'm going to put it under the label display. Over here, as you can see, the guideline appears. I'm going to put it to the left hand side, just like that. I'm just going to drag it to be a square. Also, if you go here, you can just, I'm going to have it, for now, I'm going to do, shall I do 80 by 80? Maybe 70 by 70. Okay, so I'm going to have it at 70 by 70. So I'm just going to copy and paste. I should have 6 by 6. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and again use these guidelines. So just put it to the left hand side of the guide. If I move it up, you'll see that there's a line showing that it's in line with the next button. Okay, just gonna the 5th button. Okay, and lastly the 6th button. I'm just gonna put it here. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy and paste these. I'm just gonna put this next to it, just like that. Again, aligning them. Don't forget this. Leave this part here empty, because here we'll display our calculations to then send off to the next view controller and display our tape, so our calculation history. So we've got these. Now I'm just gonna copy both like so. I'm just gonna paste it. Okay, again, just align them. Yeah. So we need 2 more rows. So again, just gonna, oops, just gonna drag them, and again, I'm just gonna place them over here. So there you go. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a label which will go over here. So again, I'm just going to drag a label. I'm going to align it with the buttons, just like so. They're going to be the same size. So what I'm just going to do is going to have it like so. The same also height as the button. Yeah, just like that. For now, I'm just going to leave the text as label. Okay, now before I apply the constraints, I'm just going to remove this label that we created. This is so when we apply the constraint, it will be just much more easier. I'm going to remove this. I'm just going to select these buttons. I'm going to copy them. I'm just going to paste them here, just like so. And after, we can then go on back to adding the label. So I'm going to leave this like this. So now when it comes to adding the constraints, what will happen is all the buttons will spread out and we'll just have a nice layout design. So what I'm going to do first of all, I'm just going to add constraints to this label at the top separately. I'm going to do control, I'm going to drag this to the top first of all, and I'm going to select vertical spacing top layout guide. Okay, when you see a red, it means there's a huge problem. When you see blue, it's perfectly fine, and when you see orange, you can fix it. I'm also going to drag it to the right hand side over here, and I'm going to do trailing space to contain a margin. And what I'm also going to do, I'm just going to drag it also over here. I'm going to do leading space to contain a margin. So now we have this, and then what I can do here is with the orange, I can just fix this constraint error. So I can do update frame, and there we have it. It just fixed the error for me. So now it's all blue, which is perfectly working fine. Okay, so now with the buttons, I'm not going to do this one by one because that will take some time. So So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all the buttons like so. So they're all selected. I'm just going to select this icon over here, and I'm going to add constraints. I'm going to do 8 by 8. So this is what we'll do, it will spread everything. Make sure all these reds are highlighted. And I'm also going to do equal width and equal heights. So make sure all of them are equal. So add that 8 again. I'm going to do add constraints. Okay, as you can see, luckily we've got no reds, because if there's a red, you might need to start over again or somehow try to fix it. But we have some oranges. So I'm going to do, I'm just going to click on here. You can see we've got some oranges. So what the oranges do is they help you and add constraints for you. So I'm just going to click on the orange sign, update frames. Instead of doing it one by one, just click on this and it will fix all of them. So now if I do fix misplacement, there you go. So now we have them all as blues, which we should have. Okay, so now I'm just going to save, and now if I run this, we'll see what we have. Hopefully we should have a nice spread out design. Okay, so yeah, as you can see here, we've got our label. The buttons are nicely spread out, and if I make it landscape, again, it just looks really nice and it's spread out and it all looks really well. And again, after we remove these buttons, and then we'll replace them with the label. Okay, so now the next step is we're going to put our digits inside. So first of all, I'm just going to start off with the number. So don't forget, here we'll have the label. So I'm going to have a decimal point, which will go over here. What I'm also going to have, I'm going to have the 0. We'll do the numbers first. So we're going to have 0, and then here we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Over here, we're going to have the tape button. So when the user clicks on tape, it will direct them to another view controller, which they can see the calculation history. Okay, now over here, we'll have the enter button, but I'm going to use a symbol for this. Here, I'm going to have the C, and here I'm going to have the AC. Just making sure that I don't move anything, because it will just mess everything up. Okay, so we have C and we have AC. Here I'm going to have a second button. Okay, so what the second button will do is over here, I'm going to have the sin, cos, and tan. And when the user clicks on the second button, this will change to sin -1, cos -1, and tan -1. Okay, and over here, I'm going to have this. For now, I'm going to have it as degrees. What we're going to do is that when the user clicks on this button, they can change it from degrees to radians. Okay, and now the next step is with most of these, what we're going to do is we're going to be using symbols. And to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to use the symbols that Xcode provides. So if we go edit, emoji and symbol, here we have lots of symbols which we can use. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to see what symbols Xcode provides. So I'm just going to go to edit, emojis and symbols. Okay, so I'm just going to go to the math symbols, and I can see here we already have a plus, minus, times and divide. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to double click the button over the C. I'm going to make this the plus. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to make this one the minus, this one the divide. I'm going to make this one the times. Okay, so this is what we have so far. So I'm going to put this to the side just over here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to make this one a pi. And for pi, I can do option P. And it will give me the pi sign. Okay, so also what we're going to have is going to have logarithms. So I'm going to have a log to the base e. I can do log and then e like so, but I'm not going to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an e symbol. So if I just type in e, we can see here that we get some e signs. So I'm just going to click on this one, this little one, and there we have it. So what I can do now, just before this e, I can type in log. And also we're going to have 1 to the base of 10. So again, I can do log 10. We're going to find some small digits. So I'm going to type in 1. And I'm going to use this bottom one. I'm also going to have a 0. I'm going to use this little 0 at the bottom. And just before this now, I can type in log. So we now have log to the base of e, and we have log to the base of 10. Okay, and now here I'm going to have x to the power of 2. So for x, I'm just going to use, if I go to the math symbol, actually for the x, I'm just going to use my own small x from the alphabet, from the keyboard. And for the 2, I'm just going to type in 2. I'm going to put a high up 2 like so. And now here we're going to have sort of a fraction. So if I type in, see, what happens if I type in fraction? Yep, there we go. We're going to use 1 over here. Oops, I'm just going to select this button. I'm going to use, and I'm going to have it to the x. Just like that. And here, if I just go to math symbols, I'm going to use this symbol so we can switch between plus and minus. I'm just going to click on this. I'm going to click on this symbol. Okay, there we have it. And I'm going to have this one. This symbol will be the square root symbol, which is here. So I'm just going to, whoops, make sure that I don't move it. I think I moved it, did I? Okay. Just going to go back here and just replace that with this. It's really, really dangerous when you move it because some of the constraints get really messed up. Okay, so I'm just going to remove this and I'm going to replace it with the square root, which is here. There you go. Just going to just make sure that everything, okay, here we have the enter button. I can write in enter, so I can just do this if I wanted, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to rub it out and I'm just going to go to arrows. I'm just going to select a nice symbol which I can use. Okay, I'm going to go for this one. I'm just going to double click this. I'm just going to close this. Okay, and now we have this enter sign. So now as you can see, we have our symbols over here, just like a calculator would have. And these buttons, we're not going to have these at the end, we're going to replace them with the label. I'm just going to save and I'm just going to run it and see how it looks. Okay, and again, when you do it, you can play about with the design and the color, etc. Yep, so all I have are symbols and it looks perfectly nice. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these buttons, and now what will happen now is the constraints will get messed up. But before I do this, what I'm just going to do, okay, so I'm just going to select these 5, I'm going to remove them. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag a label, I'm going to align it, so I'm going to have it here, and I'm going to drag it all the way until you see the guideline, and also from the bottom, I'm going to drag it also the same size, just like that. Okay, and I'm also going to drag it upwards, just like that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this, control, drag it to the bottom. I'm going to do vertical spacing to bottom layout guide. I'm going to drag it to the right hand side, trailing space to container margin. I'm also going to drag it here, and I'm going to do horizontal spacing. What I'm then going to do, I'm going to update the frame. So now, if I just save this, if I run it, as you can see here, now we have our label, which will be displayed at the bottom. So again, I can make it landscape, and I can make it portrait. So there we have that. With this label, if you wanted to, you could make this hidden, so it won't be, you can make it a color and make it transparent to the background, because the only reason we'll need this label is to send it off to the next view controller. And again, you can always hide this if you wish. Okay, so I'm just going to save this and everything. Okay, what you could also do is, if I just select all the buttons, so I'm just going to start from here. Okay, and if I just select all the buttons, what I can do is I can change the font size just to make it a bit more bigger and readable. So I'll maybe make it around 20. There you go, it just makes it much more readable and you can see. Okay, and what else I can do, again, I can, if I wished, for example, you can also change the colors. So if I just select, for example, I'm just going to select all of them. So you can change the text color from blue to something else. You can just really play about. You can change the background, for example. So if I wanted the background, for example, purple, as you can see here, the buttons are now all purple. And again, if I also select this, I can also make the text color, just do text. I can maybe make it white. I'm going to leave it like this. And again, it's up to you how you want to play about with the buttons, etc. But for now, I'm going to leave the design like this. What you can also do, you can also play about with the label of the tape. You can make it hidden, you can pull it onto the right hand side, etc. But I'm just using the label here as a base, again, just so we can send the array to the next view controller. We can display it in the tape. So when user clicks on tape, it will send us back to the history where you can see the calculations. Okay, so now the next step is we need to link this to our view controller. Okay, so the first thing I'm just going to do, I'm just going to go down here, and I'm also just going to go down here. Okay, so now I'm just going to go back to the main storyboard. I'm going to click on this, just so here we have our UI, our design, and here we have our code. So I'm going to do, first of all, so I'm going to click on the label display. I'm just going to control drag to here. I'm going to create an outlet. I'm going to name it label display, not an action because it's not going to do anything. I want to create an outlet. I'm going to have it as a UI label. I'm going to click on connect. So now as you can see here, we've created a label display. Okay, so now the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a boolean. So I'm going to do have it as a variable. I'm going to name it user has started typing, and I'm going to have it as false. Okay, and with this what I'm going to do is, okay, so I'm just going to leave that here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an IB action button. Okay, so what I'm going to do is when the user clicks on one of these buttons, for example the number 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, this label should change from 0 to that button. Okay, so to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag 0. For example, it's going to control and drag 0. And this time, it's not going to be an outlet, it's going to be an action. And I'm going to name it digit pressed. I'm going to have it as a UI button. I'm going to click on connect. Okay. So now we have the 0. I'm going to drag everything else. I'm going to also control drag the 1 into the same function. I'm going to connect it. I'm going to drag the 2, 3. Also make sure you don't drag it twice because that will mess everything up. I'm going to drag number 5. Control drag number 6. Control drag 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so now if I just hover over this little icon here, you can see here that everything that we've dragged here is highlighted. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a not a var because it's not going to change. I'm going to name it digit, and we're going to do sender dot current title. Okay, so that's going to get, I'm going to have it as an optional, and that's going to get the number, so 0, 1, 2, 3. And we're making it a let because it won't change. So now what I will do now is I'm going to print whatever the user clicked on. So what the current title will do is it will get the number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the buttons. I just want to print this out. So if I do print, I'm going to do digit press, and I'm going to have the digit. So I'm going to do equals. I'm going to do the backslash digit. I'm just going to close it. Okay, just like that. So now if I save this, just so we can see what will print out when we click on the buttons. So I'm going to run it, and hopefully we can see. Okay, so if I click on 5, digit pressed equals 5, 6, 2, 0, 1, 3, 7, 8, 9. So that all works fine. Okay, just gonna put a space here. Okay, so now the next step is I need to replace, instead of printing it here, we're still gonna have it printed here, but I'm just gonna replace this 0 value with the digit that's been pressed. So now I'm going to use the boolean. So I'm going to do if the user has started typing, which is the boolean that we created here, which is false. I'm going to do open bracket, and I'm going to do label display, which is the outlet that we created from here, dot text, and we're going to make it now label display dot text. We're going to have it as an optional, and now it's going to be replaced with the digit. So we're going to do plus, and we're going to have the digits that we created here. So we're going to do digit, and we're going to close this. And then we're going to do else at the bottom here. I'm going to have an else statement. I'm going to do label display dot text equals digit. I'm going to, at the bottom, I'm going to do user has started typing equals true. So if the user has started typing, display text will be the digit, else we're going to make it the digit, and the user has started typing equals true. So now I'm just going to make sure this function is closed, which it is. Okay, so now let's run it. Okay, and hopefully it should change the label. Okay, I forgot to put, oopsie, got that here, we need to have a backslash just like that. So that was my mistake. Just going to save it. Okay, so I'm going to run it again. Okay, so now if I do 2, you can see here that the number is now displayed at the top here, just like how we wanted it. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to have the decimal point. And don't forget, with a decimal point, the user can only put one decimal point, not more than one. So they can't do 64.5.6.7 because there's no such number. So I'm going to drag the decimal and I'm going to have it also as an action. But before, okay, yeah, that's what I'm going to do first of all. But before that, I'm just going to go up and I'm going to create it as an outlet as well. So just under here, I'm going to create an outlet for the decimal. I'm going to do control drag. Okay, just like that, and I'm just going to name it deck for decimal. And this time I'm going to have it also as UI button, and I'm going to click on connect. So now we have this here. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to create an action for it. So it's going to be a UI button and it's also going to be an IB action. So just below here, it's going to control drag. Okay, there you go. And I'm just going to name it decimal, make it as an action and a UI button. I'm going to click on connect. So I'm going to create a constant now. So I'm going to do let decimal equals sender. I'm going to get the current title, which is the dot. I'm going to make that as an optional. So now I'm going to create an if statement again with the boolean. So if user has started typing, we're going to do label display. So label display dot text, sorry. Okay, I'm going to do equals label display dot text plus, and then we're going to add on the decimal. So same thing, going to do speech, going to do backslash decimal. We're going to close it with a speech mark. And then we're going to do decimal, which is the outlet that we created, which is the deck at the top. We're going to do dot enabled equals false. So what that means is when the user does the calculation, what will happen is that if they do the decimal once, they won't be able to do it again. And then afterwards, once we work with the enter function, when the user clicks on the enter button, they can afterwards then add a decimal. But for now, if they do 64.5, they can't add another point before the 5, it will be false. Okay, and it's similar. I'm going to do else. We're going to do label display dot text. I'm just going to have it as 0. I'm going to do user has started typing equals true. And we're going to do decimal dot enabled, and this time it will be enabled. Okay, so I'm just going to save that and I'm going to run it. I'm just going to run this and we'll see if it works. Okay, so hopefully we can only select the decimal point once in one calculation. So if I do 52.4, I can't do the point again. And that's what should happen. So that is working perfectly fine. Okay, so now the next step we're going to do now is we're going to work with the degree and radian. So when the user selects this button, it will change to radian, and once they select it again, it will change to degrees. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an IB action for this. So again, just over here, just after the function that we created for the decimal, I'm just going to control and drag. I'm going to name this one degree radian. I'm going to make it as an action and UI button. I'm going to do connect. So when the user clicks on that button, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an if statement. I'm going to say if the sender dot title label sorry, so I'm also going to make it as an optional. So if the text, if it's degrees, if it says DEG, we're going to change it to radian. Oops, give it open bracket. So I'm going to do is sender, we're going to set the title, select this, and this time we're going to make it a radian, so it's going to say RAD instead. Okay, just like that. And then we're going to create, over here, the UI control state. We're going to have it as normal. So we're going to do, whoops, so we're going to do for state, UI control state, normal. And then we're going to create an else statement. Else we're going to have the title as a string, as DEG. So the string DEG, and again the UI control state is going to be normal. Okay, just like that. So now we'll test this out also. Okay, just gonna save this and we'll see. And then after that, we'll work on the second button and getting the sin, cos and tan to be sin, cos and tan minus 1. That'll be the next step. Okay, so now if I do degree, you can see now it's radian, degree. So the user can select if they want the answers to be a degree or a radian. So that is working fine as well. Okay, so similarly, it's a very similar concept, but we're going to do the same thing now with the sin, cos, and the tan. So we can make them sin minus 1, cos minus 1 when the user clicks on the second button. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this second button as an action, similar as we did with the degree and radian. Okay, so I'm just going to drag this over here as an action. I'm going to name it second. Oops. So second, I'm going to make it a UI button. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go to the top here. And what I need to do is for the sin, cos and tan, I need to create an IB outlet for them. So what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to go here. So I'm going to select the sin first of all. So it's going to be an outlet. I'm going to name it, same thing, I'm just going to name it sin. Same thing with the cos. Just going to drag it here. I'm going to name it cos. The tan as well. I'm going to control drag and have it as tan. And also lastly what I'm going to do is I'm also going to drag the second as an IB outlet as well. So it's going to control and drag. I'm going to name it second. Okay, so now we can start linking these with our function that we created. And we can tell them to start switching to sin minus 1, cos minus 1. and tan minus 1. Okay, so the first step I'm going to do, I'm going to create an if statement. So I'm going to do if the sin dot title label, make an optional, if the text equals sin, we're going to do then sin, again we're calling the id outlet when we do this. We do sin dot set title, and then over here we're going to do sin, I want it to be -1. We're going to change this into a symbol. We're going to do it later on though, not now. And the UI control state is going to be normal. So UI.control state, and we're going to have it as normal. And we're going to do an else statement. We're going to do sin dot set title. We're going to keep it as a sin. And again, the UI control state is going to be a normal. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to same thing for the cost. So I'm going to do if cost says cost, we're going to set it as -1. So if the user clicks it and it says cost, it will be -1. Else, it's going to stick to cost. And one more time, we're going to do it here. If it's a tan, we're going to set the title as tan -1. Else, we're going to keep it as tan. Okay, and also what we're going to do is we're also going to do the same thing, but when the user clicks on the second and these start being -1, we need to change it back. So how to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to say that if the second dot title label, if it says second, so repeat just like that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do second dot set title, and instead of saying second, it's going to say first. This means to go back to its normal state, which is sin, cos and tan, just like how we have it here. Else, we're going to keep it as second. Okay, so that is the base that we have. So now I'm just going to save this. Now we're going to run it and we'll see what we have. So let me just double check. So if it's sin, else we do this. Oh, if it's cost, this needs to be cost as well. We're going to set this and set this. Forgot about that. Okay, tan. Okay, so I'm also going to make this tan, tan, and tan. And if it's second, we're going to make it first, and then we're going to make it second. I'm just going to connect the outlets, which I forgot to do. Okay, so now I'm just going to save this. I'm just going to see if it works and we have no mistakes. I'm just going to run this now, and hopefully it will work. Okay, so if I click on second, we can see that they changed to sin -1, cost -1, and tan -1, and this changes to first. If I hit this back, it will go back to how it is. So that also is working well. But I don't like the way it says -1. I feel like we should use the symbols. So I'm just going to do that now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these -1 just to make it look more like a calculator. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove this. I'm going to do emojis and symbols. So I'm just going to see if I type in minus. Maybe I can find a nice small minus. Okay, so we'll leave the minus as it was, but I'm just going to find a small one. I'm going to type in 1. There you go. Have this nice little small one. I think it will look much more better. So I'm just going to copy this one. I'm just going to place them with the big ones. Okay, just like that. So now I'm just going to again save this. I'm just going to run it again and just double check. So after this step, what we'll need to do afterwards now is start working on the operations. So again, if I click on second, there you have the nice little small ones, first and second. So that is working well. And now the next step will be to create another class for the calculator engine, so where the operations will be based, just so we won't have it all in here, and then we can start working with our operations such as plus, minus, etc. Okay, so the next step I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a new file, and what this file will do is we're going to be setting the operations and also the numbers to that file to work out the calculations. So to get started, what I'm going to do is going to create a new file. So I'm going to do File, New File. I'm going to create a Swift file. Next, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to name mine Calculator Engine. So here is where all the calculations will be worked. I'm going to name it Calculator Engine. I'm going to click Create. Okay, here we have our file. I'm just going to import Foundation. I'm also going to import UIKit. And I'm also going to import Darwin. What Darwin will do is for the mathematics. Okay, so now I'm just going to create my class now. So I'm going to do class calculator engine, so the same name, and it's going to be an NS object. Okay, so here we'll be sending the operations and the numbers from the main view controller. We'll be sending it off here to the calculator engine. Okay, so now to begin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. I'm just going to name it operand stack. I'm going to make it an array and it's going to be a double. So we'll be sending the numbers that the user has clicked on from the calculator to the operand stack variable. Okay, so now I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it update stack with value, and the value we're going to be sending off is a double. So I'm going to do value, okay, double. So I'm going to do open bracket over here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is going to append. So I'm going to do self dot operand stack dot append, and we're going to append the value double. So here we're going to be sending off the digits pressed to here. Okay, so now we've got this main base done. I'm just going to save this, and now I'm going to go back to the view controller. Okay, so now what I need to do here is, first of all, importantly, I need to call the calculator engine class that we created. So just underneath here, I'm going to do a variable, and I'm just going to name it, calc engine. Okay, and I'm going to call it now, so it's called calculator engine. Okay, so now also what I'm going to do is inside, I'm going to now call it inside the view did load. So if I just find the view did load, okay, which is here, I'm going to call the calculator engine. So I'm going to do if self dot calc engine equals nil. I'm going to call it. I'm going to do self dot calc engine. We're going to do is calculator engine, just like that, and I'm going to close this. Okay, so now the next step is, what I'm going to do is, as you can see on the top, we have the second button, the degree radian button, the decimal button, and we also have the digit pressed. So now what I'm going to do is, similar how we control and drag, I'm going to do the same thing with the enter. So I'm just going to go back to the main storyboard, split the screen, okay, not this one, I'm just gonna find it through here. Okay, so underneath here, I'm gonna drag the enter button, which is this one. I'm gonna click, I'm gonna do control drag. Okay, and we want it to be an action. It's a UI button. I'm gonna name it enter. Okay, and now inside here, we're going to write down the code. So the user will, for example, do 6, enter 6 plus, or 5, enter 5 minus. So that's how it works. So at the top over here, we said that user has started typing equals false. Now we're going to start entering. So we're going to do user has started type. This is going to be false. User already typed and clicked enter. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is just on the top here, just before the enter button, I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to name it display value. I'm going to make it a double. Okay, so what we're going to do here now, what we're going to do is, for example, we're going to get whatever value is inside the label display. So if the user does 9, enter, we're going to get that 9, which will be displayed here. So to do this, I'm just going to do get the double, and then I'm going to do get. I'm going to do return. I'm going to get the number, so we're going to do ns number formatter, and then we're going to do number from string. We're going to get whatever is inside the label display.text. It's also going to be an optional, and also we're going to make it a double value. Okay, just going to close this, make an optional. So now we've got the number displayed from inside here. And now I'm also going to do here, I'm going to do set. I'm going to do new value. Okay, we're going to do set new value. Then we're going to put the new value inside the label display. We're going to do label display dot text. We're going to do speech marks back new value. Oops. Okay, I'm just going to close this. Okay, so now here we've got whatever value is inside here, and then after what we're going to do is we're going to set it with the new value. So now I'm going to continue working with the enter function. So now when for example, how it will work again, so if I do 3 enter 2 plus, when I do 3 enter, what it will do is we're going to send off the first value before we click enter. When we click enter, off to the calculator engine. So I'm going to do self.calculator engine. We're going to send it off to the operand stack. We're going to send the display value, which is the variable that we create at the top, which has a label display.text. Okay, display value. Also, after the user clicks enter, we're going to go back to enabling decimal because it was disabled. We're going to go back to enabling it. We're going to make that true. Okay. And what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to do a print statement just so I can see what is happening. I'm going to do print. I'm just going to write down operand stack on engine equals, and I'm just going to do a backslash. I'm going to do self.calc engine, make an optional, and operand stack. So operand stack. I'm just going to close this. Okay, this is for debugging purposes and just so I can see what I can see for myself what I'm doing. Okay, just to see that just to double check that we're sending the values off to the calculator engine, I'm just going to run it and see what print statements will come, just so we know we can move on next to the operations. Okay, so if I now do, for example, 3, enter, we can see that it's been sent off to the calculator engine, and also it's been returned as a double. You can see now both 3 and 2 has been sent off. So now what we're going to do is we're going to send off these two values also along with the operations. If I do, for example, 2, enter, we've sent 3 values, etc. So now we've appended the numbers and we've set them off to the calculator engine. Okay, now the next step is we're going to now send off the operations. Okay, so to do this, just underneath here, I'm going to drag the plus first. So I'm going to click on plus and I'm going to do control drag. I'm just going to drag it here. I'm going to name it operation. I'm going to make it an action and a UI button. Just going to connect it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do create a constant. I'm going to do let operation, and we're going to get, so we're going to do sender dot current title. So what this will do, it will get the, as you can see, the labels. So whether it's plus, minus, divide, x to the power of 2, etc. So we're going to get that, and then we're going to create an if statement, and we're going to say if user has started typing, it's going to be the enter. So the user will do, for example, 6, enter 3, plus. Okay. Also, okay, so I'm just going to see what's wrong with this. Okay, so I'm just going to continue. So I'm going to do now self dot display values. Now what we're going to do is we're going to send off the operation as well to the calculator engine. So I'm going to do self dot display value. We're going to do self dot calculator engine dot operate, and then we're going to send off the operation. Okay, and then once we sent off the operation, what I can do now is I can just do enter, just like so. Okay, because we want to call the enter function, what I just need to do, I'm just going to go on top, I'm going to remove the sender UI button. This is so we can call the function enter. So I'm just going to remove this. It won't change anything, but it's just so that we can call it. So as you can see, the errors for the enter have now disappeared. Okay, so now we can successfully, now using this, we can send off the operation to the calculator engine. But to do this, we now, because I named it operate, inside the calculator engine, we're going to create a function operate, which will send off the string operation. So I'm just going to now go ahead, go inside the calculator engine. I'll do it underneath here. Okay, so now I'm going to name it operate, just like I named it here. And the operation will be sent in a form of a string, so the times, divide, minus, etc. And what I'm going to do also is going to have it as a double. Also, when I return the value, I'm going to return them as a double. Okay. Okay, also, I'm just going to make it an optional. Okay, just like so. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, since the first thing we dragged was the plus. So, no, it wasn't the plus. I'm just going to double check. If I just go here, yeah, it was the plus. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the plus from here. So I'm going to just copy this. I'm going to go back to my calculator engine. And I'm going to create a switch operation. Okay, so I'm going to do case I'm going to do open speech, but I'm going to paste the plus sign that I copied from the storyboard, and I need to make sure that it's exactly the same because as you can see it's been passed on. I'm going to close this. I'm going to do now, if the user clicks the plus sign, so if the user does 6, enter 6 plus for example, so I'm going to do if operand stack, and I'm going to do dot count. If it's small or equals to 2, so it should be more than 2 or 2. If it's more than 2, so if the user does 6, enter 6, enter 6, and no, for example, if the user does 5, enter 4, enter 3, enter 2, we'll only get the last two numbers, which is 3, until we'll add them up. So this plus operation will only accept 2 digits. So we're going to do if operand stack dot count is more or equal to 2. We're going to do open bracket, and we're going to say return self dot operand stack, and we're going to get the last number, and we're also going to plus it by the last number, so it's going to get the 2 last numbers. So we're going to do plus self dot operand stack dot remove last. Okay, so it's always going to get the 2 last numbers. Since it doesn't matter, so even if the user does, for example, 6, enter 2, enter plus, it doesn't matter if it's 6 plus 2 or 2 plus 6, we'll still get the same answer. Whereas when it comes to minus or other things, we'll need to do remove first and remove last. But here we're just going to get the 2 last numbers. Okay, so now we want to test this out. But before we test this out, what I need to do, we need to create a default and a return statement just for the switch. So I'm just going to do default. I'm going to do break. Okay, I'm going to close this. I'm just going to do return 0. So I'm going to just return a double. I'm just going to close this. Okay, just like that. Okay, I'm just going to put a space here. Okay, when it comes to Swift, when it comes to spacing, it's quite important. Okay, I'm just going to save this now. So here we've tested, just tested one operation, which is the plus, and then once this is working, we could do the minus, divide, etc. Okay, and before I run this, I'm just going to go back to the view controller. I'm just going to make sure that everything's connected properly. I also want to get any error. So when it's filled in the circles, it means it's connected. Just going to go down and check that everything's connected. Okay, and I can see that enter isn't connected. As you can see, it's not highlighted. So I'm just going to split the screen up. I'm going to make this the view controller. I'm going to make this the storyboard. Okay, I'm just going to control, actually before that I'm going to right click, and I can see there's no connection. If yours is connected, maybe just close it and then connect it again. Just going to control and drag, and now it's connected through here and it's connected through here. If you have twice, delete both of them and connect it again. Okay, so now I'm going to save this. I'm going to test it with the plus and see if it's working. So I'm going to run this, and hopefully I'm going to test some numbers and we'll see if it works. And don't forget, with the plus, it will only take the 2 last digits. So I'm just going to do 2, enter 2 plus, and we can see that the answer here and here, you can see the answer is 4. However, if I do long ones, so if I do, for example, 1, enter 2, enter 3, enter 4, we can see that we have 1, 2, and 3, 4 in our stack. However, if I do plus, we can see here 4, 5, 6, 7. So if I do now 5, enter 5, enter 5 plus, you can see here that it takes the last two, so 5 plus 5 is 10. So I'm going to do, let's do 2, enter 2, enter 2 plus, it gets the last two numbers, which is 4. We could just try something a bit more bigger. Let's do 1, enter 1, enter 1. It should be 3, however we'll get 2 because like I said, it takes the last two numbers on the operation stack. Okay, so now we've got the plus, now let's drag the other ones. So as you can see, if we go to our operation, it's connected with the plus, and now I'm going to connect it with the minus. Okay, I'm also going to connect it with the divide, control and drag, and I'm also going to connect it with the times, control and drag. Okay, so now I'm just going to go to the calculator engine. Okay, and now with the plus, we're going to have another operation. So I'm just going to do mine underneath. I'll show you at the top here. I'm going to do case, and now it's for the times sign. So I'm just going to go back to the storyboard quickly, click on the times. I'm going to copy this. It's just really important to make sure it's the same, or else it won't be able to detect it. I'm going to go to the calculator engine, and we're going to say, it's going to copy this. If the user clicked on the times button, so 6 enter times, 6 enter 2 times, which should be 12. So we're going to do if operand stack dot count, same thing, is more equals to 2. It has to be 2 numbers. We're going to do return self dot operand stack, and again it doesn't matter, so we're going to do remove last, but times it by the remove last number as well. So we're going to do times self dot operand stack dot remove last. So again, we're going to get the 2 last numbers where the user clicks on the times button. I'm just going to go now underneath here and do the same thing for divide. So we're going to do case. Again, go back to the storyboard. I'm going to click on divide, copy this divide symbol, Command C, come back here. Oops. Just going to paste it here. Okay, I'm going to do if operand stack dot count is more and equal than 2. What I'm going to do now is it's going to be a bit more different. I'm going to do return self dot operand stack. So when it comes to division, if you do, for example, 10 divided by 2, it's very different to doing 2 divided by 10. So to do this, we're going to return the first from the operand stack. So we're going to do dot remove first, and we're going to divide that by self dot operand stack dot remove last. So it's really important when it comes to the ordering. So we have our times, we have our divide, and we'll have our plus, and the next thing we're going to do now is the minus. So again, I'm just going to put it down here, just go to the main storyboard, I'm going to click the minus, copy this minus symbol, I'm going to come back here, I'm going to do case, just going to paste the minus symbol, and same thing, I'm going to do if operand stack dot count is more equal to 2. We're going to do return self dot operand stack, and again when it comes to minuses, doing 5 minus 2 is very different to 2 minus 5. So we're going to get the first one, So we're going to do remove first. We're going to minus that with self dot operand stack dot remove last. Okay, so we've got our times, divide, plus and minus. So I'm going to run it and we'll see what's working and what we have a problem with. So the 4 operations that we've used are these 4. So I'm going to start with plus. So plus, we're going to get the 2 last numbers. So if I do 3, enter 3 plus, that's 6. 5, enter 5 plus, that is 10. Okay, so let's do times now. Let's do 5, enter 2 times, that's correct, and that's 10. And again, let's do 4, enter 3 times, and that's 12. Okay, so now let's do minus. So if I do 5, enter 2 minus, okay, we're getting 4, so there's a problem here. Let's try another number. So if I do 8, enter 4 minus, okay, so we're getting this problem because with the minus we're saying remove first, however the stack is really long, so it's getting the first value. So that shouldn't happen. And also with the divide, I think we're going to have the same problem since divide we're also taking the first value. So if I do 6, enter 2 divide, yeah, we're getting the same problem. Okay, so to fix this, what we could do is we can start by working on our AC and C button. Okay, so what I'm going to do, if I go back here to the storyboard, we have 2 buttons. We have C and we have AC. So C, what C will do is it will remove the last value from the stack. So the user can do, for example, 3, enter 2. If they do C, it will be 3, enter, they can choose any other number. So if I do, for example, 3, enter 2, C, 1 plus, it will be 4. The 2 won't count. And what all clear will do, all clear will remove everything from the stack and start all over. So all the stack, all these numbers will disappear. So I'm going to start off first of all by doing the clear button. So let's go drag the C first. I'm just going to control and drag to here. So I'm going to make this an action and I'm going to name it clear. And I'm going to make it send a UI button. Just like so. Okay, so with the clear, what I'm first of all going to do is if the user does 3, enter 2, 2 will appear here, but this has to change back to 0. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do label display dot text equals, I'm going to make it a 0. Okay. Now I'm going to remove the last element from the operation stack. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to do self. I'm going to call the calc engine dot operand stack, and we're going to remove the last one. And then we're going to do user has started typing equals false. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and we're going to see. So it's quite a small piece of code. And we're going to see if it works. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to run the program now. Again, make sure that it's linked. And let's see if we can remove the last element from the operation stack. So with the clear, it's going to be slightly confusing, but we'll be able to get the last number. So if I do, for example, now 5, enter, 5, enter. So now we have 5 and 5 in the stack, but we don't want that. I want to have it 5 and 2. So if I do C, and I do 2, and I do plus, so it should be 5 plus 2, which is 7, we get the number 7. So now 5 and 2 is in the stack instead of 5 and 5. So same thing, if I do 9, enter, 7, enter, but I don't want it to be 9 and 7. I can do C, and I can have it 9 and 2, If I do times, it's 18. So now we can change the last number on the stack. But that's not going to solve the whole point with the remove first and the remove last when it comes to division and minus. So to do this, we need to work with the all clear. So now I'm going to control and drag the all clear button. I'm going to make this also as an action, and I'm going to name it all clear. I'm going to make it a UI button. So same thing, I'm just going to have it as the same here. So it's going to be 0, the label. So I'll do label display dot text. I'm going to have it as 0. And what I'm also going to do now, instead of doing remove last, I'm going to do self dot calc engine dot operand stack, and now I'm going to do remove all. And same thing, I'm going to do user has started typing. I'm going to make it false. So by doing remove all, we've removed all the values from the operation stack. So we can have it with 0, and also when it comes to that, what will happen is we can start adding and removing. So when it comes to removing all, what we can do is we can start dividing and minus by getting the remove first and the remove last. Also, I'm just gonna make this into an optional, just like that. Okay, so now I'm gonna run this and we'll see if now the division and the minus will work. Okay, so now if I do, for example, 5, enter 5 plus, we know that's 10. If I do 2, enter 2, enter, remove the last stack, we'll have 5 instead, and we'll do plus. We know 5 plus 2 is 7, so C is working all fine. Now, so when it comes to minus, if I do, for example, 9, enter 2, minus, we get 8. It shouldn't be 8, it should be 7. So if I do AC, okay, so now it will move everything from the stack. So if I do now 9, enter 2, enter, minus, we get the correct answer. So when it comes to minus and divide, always click AC and remove everything from the stack so it starts from the beginning. Same thing with division. If I do 8, enter 2, enter divide, we get 4. Again, press AC, because if I don't press AC, if I go ahead and I'll do, for example, 4, enter 2, enter divide, okay, we get 2. Let's try more. So if I do 8, enter 2, enter divide, we're getting 2. We're not getting number 4, which is the answer. So always do AC when you're planning to do minus or division. Okay, so now we've got all clear done and we've got clear done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to work on with the rest. So here we have our operation. We did plus, minus, divide and times. I'm going to send everything else. So what I'm also going to do now is send 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to start with the pi. Control and drag the pi. Control and drag. Control and drag. And control and drag. So these ones are going to work very similar. So I'm going to start off with this one first. So again, I'm going to copy and paste this. Okay, I'm going to go back to the calculator engine. I'm going to do case. I'm going to paste this. If this is the operation, this is very, very similar. So what this case will do, it will just make it a minus. So I'll do return self dot operand stack dot remove last. What we're just going to do is going to have it as a minus. So I'm going to do star -1. just like that. So if I now save this, just show you how that symbol will work. Okay, so I'm just going to run it now. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what I mean by when it turns to minus. So for example, if I do 6, enter 6 plus, we have 12, and if I click the minus sign, it turns it into a minus. So it says minus 12. Make it normal 12, minus 12. Also, if I do, for example, let's say I do minus 5, and I do enter 2, plus is 3. So it can change a number into a minus. And again, another example I can do is 9. I can make it minus 9, enter 2, plus it's now minus 7. So what this will do, it can change it from a minus and as well to a plus. Okay, so I'm just going to go back now to the main storyboard, and the next thing we're going to look at, let's look at this one, to the power of 2. So I'm going to copy this, go back to the calculator engine, so I'm going to do case, I'm just going to create a constant, so I'm going to do let number, I'm going to do get the last operation stack number, so self dot operation, we're going to get 1 this time, just like the minus, so we're going to get the number. So for example, if the user does 2 enter and clicks this operation, it will get the 2 and then it's going to times it by itself, just like how it would when you do power to 2. So we'll do return number times number. Okay, so again I'm just going to run it and test it out. So we're just timesing it by itself. Okay, so if I do 9, for example, enter, and I do this, you can see 9 times 9 is 81. Also, if I do 5 and I click this automatically, you can see that we don't have to do enter when it comes to only using 1. So if we, as you can see here, we did dot remove last, because we're only having 1, you don't have to do enter. Enter is only needed when it comes to plus, minus, divide, and if you need more than 2 digits. But if you don't need more than 2 digits, you can just do 7, just like that, very simply. Okay, so I'm just going to go also back to the main storyboard, and I'm just also going to drag, so I've dragged these 4. Okay, I'm just going to drag these 2, not this one, I'm going to also drag the square root button, just so we can finish with these symbols and we can move on to the others. So I'm also going to drag the square root. Okay, I'm just going to copy the square root symbol. I'm going to come here. Okay, and don't forget, these symbols won't work and the maths won't work. You have to import Darwin to make it work. Okay, so now I'm going to do case. I'm going to use the square root symbol. And now we're going to do return. And this time we can use the square root because we imported Darwin. So we could do sqrt. So self dot operand stack dot remove last. So now I can just save this and let's see if we get the correct square root number. Okay, so if I do, for example, 5 square root, or we could do 4 square root, which is 2, 3 square root, 9 square root. Okay, the next step we're going to do the pi, which is here. So we're going to copy this, and again go back to the calculator engine. So if it's a square root, what I can do is I can do self, I'm going to do return self dot operand stack dot remove last. We're going to times it by pi, so times it by pi. So if I just run this, we can see if it works. So if I do 6 pi, we get the total value of 18. And just to double check that's correct, if I go to Google and if I do, for example, 6 pi, we get the same number. So if I just go back to my Xcode, we're getting the same number. What I could also do if I wanted to is I could round the number up if I wished. So I'm just going to show you how you can do that. Again, you don't have to, but I'm just going to show. So what I could do is I can do let ans equals, I'm just going to put the result inside the constant ans. And then what I can also do is then return, I'm going to round, I can do ans times, you can do it to how many you want, so I'm going to do it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, for example. I can just do divided by this, so I'm just going to repeat that. Okay, so I'm just going to neaten this up a bit. Okay, so now if I run this, you can see if we can round it up. So if I do again 6 pi, we can see now the number is much more shorter because we've rounded it. Okay, so now the next step we're going to do, I'm just going to go back to the main storyboard. Let's do this one. I'm just going to copy this, go to calculator engine, we're going to do case, we're going to do return, so it's 1 over x, so we're going to do 1 self dot operand stack, and we're also going to get the last digit. Just going to put also a space here. So I'm going to save this, and again I'm going to run it and see. And after this we can work with the 2 logarithms to the base e and to the base 10. So if I do, for example, 6, there you go. So it will be 1 over 6. So if I just go here, for example, if I do 1 divided by 6, 0.16666, get the same answer. Okay, so now the next step, we've done that, so now let's do the logarithms. So I'm just going to go back to the main storyboard, and I'm going to drag these two. So I'm just going to do control drag number 10 and control drag E. Okay, and again you can double check if it's dragged again by just doing it through here, just hovering over. So we're going to start with log 10. I'm going to copy this, go to the calculator engine, just underneath here, I'm going to do case log 10, I'm going to return, and again we've imported DOM, if I could just do log 10 to work it out, I can do self dot operand stack dot remove last. I can do the same thing with log to the base e. So if I just go back to the main storyboard, just make sure that I'm not moving it. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to go back to the calculator engine. So I'm going to do case to the base E. I'm going to do return log. I'm going to do self dot optimize stack dot remove last. Okay, just like that. I'm just going to save it. So we've done the basics. Now I'm just going to check now to see whether log 10 and log E works. Okay, so we've done log to the base of 10, log to the base of E. So now I'm just going to run this and we'll see if it works. Also, I've got set up some logarithm calculator just to see if it's correct. So we're going to try 4 to the base of 10. We should get this answer. And if I go here to the base of E, number 5, we should get this answer. So hopefully we get the same ones. Okay, so let's start with doing 5 to the base of E. So if I do 5 log E, you can see we get the same number. Just going to clear this. And now 4 to the base of 10. I'm just going to do that. So if I do 4 to the 10, again we get the correct answer. So now we know that the logarithms are working. Okay, so now the next step is we've done this and we've done here. So now the next step, we're going to work on the left hand side. We're going to work on sin, cos and tan, degrees and radians, as well as sin minus 1, cos minus 1 and tan minus 1, as you can see through here. And also we're going to lastly work on the tape. Okay, so now as you can see, we've got the basic operations done. So if I go back to the main storyboard, okay, so we can see that we've got these operations done and these. Okay, so now we're going to work on the sin, cos and tan and the degrees and radian. Because we can switch this from degrees to radians and radians to degrees, it won't be possible to do case sin or case cos or case tan. We can't do this because we need to check whether first of all the user chose a degree or a radian. And also we need to pass on the degrees and radian from the view controller first of all to the calculator engine. So that's most importantly, we need to pass on that first, and then inside the calculator engine we can do an if statement to check whether it's a degree or a radian, because they're going to have different calculations. So to do this, inside the view controller, what I'm going to do is just after here, I'm going to create a button name. So a button name, I'm going to create a string. And this string, what we're going to do is we're going to pass it on to the calculator engine. And what this button name will have, it will have the degree and the radian. Okay, so now inside the view did load. Okay, so inside here, what I'm just going to do, just going to go down here and I'm going to write down button name, and by default I'm going to have it as a degree. So that's the first step. Okay, so now the next step what I'm going to do is going inside where I have the degree and radian. So as you can see here, I said that we're going to have a degree. So if it's a degree, we're going to set the title as radian, else leave it as degree. So here the user can switch between a degree and a radian. So now what I need to do here is I need to say that if the user clicked on it, a degree button, and it's now a radian, just after here I'm going to say button name equals radian, so RAD, else I'm going to have button name equals degree. Okay, just like that. Okay, so that's done here, and so now the next step is we need to send it off to the calculator engine. So the function to send it off is inside here. So here we're sending off the operation, and at the same time we're going to send off the button name. So I'm going to name it button name, and we're going to send off the button name. I'm going to have it as an optional. Okay, just like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go inside the calculator engine. Okay, and if I just go up here, you can see here that inside the function operate, I've passed on the operation. Now I'm going to pass on the button name. So I'm going to say button name, and that is a string. Okay, so now I'm just going to save that. So now I'm just going to go back here, and as you can see, the error has now disappeared since we've passed it on. Okay, so now the next step is what I'm going to do is just underneath where I did the last calculation, which is the logarithm to the base e. I'm now going to scroll down here, and I'm going to say if the user clicks on sin and if the button name equals radian, so if the button name that's there by default is a radian, since when it comes to sin and cos, if you do radian, whether it's degree or radius, you get a different answer. So here I'm saying if the button name equals radian, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do return sin. I'm going to do self dot operand stack dot remove last. And then just after here, I'm going to do else. And I'm going to say return sin degrees. We're going to do self dot operand stack dot remove last. Okay, so what we've done here is saying if the user clicks on sin and if the button is a radian, we're going to work out the sin. So we're going to do return sin of the last number in the operation stack. So if they did 10 sin, so if they do 10 and sin and have it as a radian, we'll get the answer. Else, however, if it's in degrees, we're going to call a function called degrees. So here I've just created a little function called sin degrees, and now inside this function sin degrees, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the, so if I just go up here, I'm going to have the method and calculation to work out the degrees. So I'm just going to go up top here, just before here, I'm going to create the function. I'm going to do function sin degrees. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to have it as degrees, and it's going to be a double, just like that. And to work out the degrees, we're going to do return sin. So we get the answer, so the number the user clicked, which is degrees. And to do this, we times it. Whoops, so not sin, so it's sin. And we times it by pi divided by 180. I'm going to make it a double, so it's returning a double as well. Okay, I'm just going to save this. So what we've done here is if the user clicks on the sin button, if it's a radian, we're going to do sin. So we're going to work out the calculation here easily. Else, however, if it's a degrees, we're going to call this degrees function, sin degrees function, goes to the top here, returns the number, works out the sin and times it by pi and divided by 180. So this is the calculation to work out in degrees, and this is the calculation, basic calculation to work out in radians. So I'm going to save this, and before I go any further, I'm just going to go ahead and run it and see if it works. Okay, so before I go ahead and I run the program, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the view controller. Okay, I'm going to split the screen in half. I'm going to make this one the storyboard. Okay, and inside the operation now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to control drag the sin, just like that, and I'm also going to control drag the degree radian button. Okay, so now if I just highlight on this, I can see the degrees highlighted. If I go just down over here, I can also see the sin highlighted. Okay, and I'm just going to also, whilst I'm here, I'm also going to control drag the cos. I'm also going to control and drag the tan. Okay, so now I'm going to run it. And on Google, I've opened up just a calculator so we can see and compare our answers. Okay, so just going to get that up. So now if I do, for example, 5 sin, we get this answer, and this is in degrees. So if I have it degrees here, and I do 5, we can see here that we get the same answer. Okay, so now I'm going to change it to radian. I'm going to do 5 sine, we get a minus number. So I'm just going to try that here as well. So I'm just going to move this, change it to radian. If I do sine 5, you can see here we're getting the same number. So we know that the sine is working. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go back over here. I can close this now. And I'm going to go back to the calculator engine. I'm going to work with cos. So again, it's very, very similar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do case cos. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just going to, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy this. I don't have to write it myself. Okay, and this time I'm going to say if button name equals radian, we're going to return cos. So do the calculation of cos using the last operation stat. Else we're going to return cos degrees. And lastly, what I'm going to do also, so we're going to create a function for this later on. We're also going to copy this and do the same thing for tan. So again, similar concept, we're going to do case tan. So I'm just going to do case tan. If it's radian, we're going to return tan. Else, we're going to return tan degrees. Okay, so now I can save this, and now we can do the following functions to work out the degrees when we do cos. We can do the same function as well to work out the tan degrees. So I'm just going to go up top here. I'm just going to copy and paste this, paste it below, and I'm going to do cos degrees, since we named it cos degrees. And I'm just going to do, to work it out, we return cos, and same thing, we do degrees times by pi divided by 180. And same thing, copy this, I'm going to paste this, I'm going to do tan degrees, and also we're going to return tan. And same thing, we do degrees times by pi divided by 180. Okay, so now I'm just going to save this. Now we're going to do, we're just going to run the program again and just double check that it works. I also got my calculator up and ready so we can check the answers. Okay, so I'm going to start off with, let's do degrees first. So if I do, for example, let's do degrees. So cos, let's do 4. So cos 4, we get this answer. So if I do cos 4, same answer. If I make it a radian, for example, and I do cos 4, we get this answer. And same thing here, made it a radian. If I do cos 4, we get the same answer. And lastly, we're going to work with tan. So if I do, for example, let's do tan 9. In degrees, it's this number. Just going to go back here. Okay, whoops. So in radian, yep, same number. And if I do it in degrees, we get this number. So let's try it here as well. So if I do 9 tan, oh whoops, let's just change that. So if I do 9 tan, we get the same number. So now that we've worked it out with sin, cos and tan with degrees and radians, now what we're going to do now is we're going to work it out with sin minus 1, cos minus 1 and tan minus 1. So to do that, it's going to be a very similar concept. So what I'm going to do is going to go, okay, so we're going to stay with our calculator engine and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to first of all do a case and we're going to say what we have. So I'm just going to go down here and I'm going to do case. And this time I'm going to go back to the main storyboard. I'm sorry, not the storyboard, sorry. I'm going to go back to the view controller. And I'm just going to copy and paste the sign minus 1, just like how I wrote it here. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, go back to calculator engine, and paste this. So I'm going to do if the case is sign minus 1, and the same thing what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy and paste this. Okay, I'm going to do if button name equals radian, we're going to return a sin. That's what it's called for the calculation. When you do sin minus 1, do the following, else I'm going to name it, let's do name it is in radian. Okay, just like that. So we're going to now create the function for ace in radian. So same thing, we're going to go up top and work it out. So it's, as you can see, it works very, very, very similarly. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to name the function ace in radian. This time we're going to return a radian. So it's very different to how, the math is quite different as you can see. So I'm just going to do return ace in, and to work out what we're going to do, again, it's very different. We're going to do radian, so we return the radian and we times it, and this time we do 180, again making it a double, and we divide that by pi. Okay, just like that. So when it comes to this, we return the radian and we do as in get the number that's returned and we times it by 180 divided by n pi. So the calculation to work it out is slightly more different, however we're doing the same concept. So now if I save this, okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and run this and we'll see if the arc sign works. I've also, as usual, I'm going to get my calculator up and ready. So if I just click on invert, we can work with these signs, and also we have degrees and radians. So we'll start off with radians first of all. Okay, so if I do, for example, the numbers have to work, it has to be quite specific numbers or else the program will crash. So if I do 0.5, so arc sign in radians of 0.5, we get this number. So I'm going to make it radians as well. So if I do 0.5, you can see that we get the same number. Also, I'm going to make it into degrees. It's 30, so we're going to try that as well. So we're going to do, okay, so we're going to degrees. So we're going to do 0, whoops, we're going to do 0.5. We're going to make that sign minus 1, and as you can see, we're getting the same answer. Now that it's working, we can now move on to doing the cos minus 1 and the tan minus 1. So again, it's going to be very, very similar concept throughout. So we're going to go ahead, copy this, we're going to paste this here. I'm going to change this from sin, I'm going to make it cos. I'm going to keep the minus 1, and also don't forget it has to be exactly the same, the strings. And same thing, I'm going to do if button name equals radian. I'm going to this time not return a sin, we're going to return a cos. Else we're going to return it, I want to name it a cos radian, just like that. Same thing, I'm going to copy and paste this. and this time it's tan minus 1. We're going to return a tan, else we're going to name it a tan radian. So name it a tan radian, just like that. So now we can go ahead to the top, and again in terms of mathematics they're very similar. So I'm going to start off copying this, pasting it. I'm going to name this a cos radian, and then instead of a sin we're going to return a cos, leave the rest as it is. And lastly we're going to copy this, paste this here, and we're going to return a tan radian, and we're going to replace this with a tan, and we're going to save this. So right now we've done all the calculations that we need for the calculator to work. Okay, so now we're going to test it out, and I'm also going to, again, I'm going to have it against here, just so we can see if we're getting the correct answers. So I'm going to start off with degrees first of all. Okay, so I want to do, let's do 0.5 cos minus 1, and it's 60. I'm going to try that out here. So I'm going to do sin minus 1, 0.5, oh whoops, sorry, I mean cos minus 1. I'm going to do cos, whoops. Okay, so I'm going to do cos minus 1. Let's remove this. I'm going to do 0.5, and we have 60. So we're getting the same answers here. And I'm going to make it into radians. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to do 0.5 in radians. The answer is 1.047. I'm going to make this into radians. I'm going to do 0.5. And again, getting the same answer. Lastly, I'm going to work with tan minus 1. Again, 0.5. In radians, we get this number, 0.5. We get the same number. And lastly, with degrees, we're getting this number. So again, I'm going to make it into degrees, 0.5. And as you can see, we have the same number. So far, all our calculations are successfully working. So now the next that we're going to do now is we're going to, when the user clicks on the take button, it will display us a new view controller where the user can see the history calculations. But before we do this, what we need to do is, as we have a label here, so every time the user starts clicking on these numbers and operations, they're going to print off over here. So then we can use this string to then send it off to the next view controller. So that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the view controller. I'm also going to open up the storyboard. So I'm just going to go back here and split the screen. I'm going to close this. Okay, split the screen. I will make this the storyboard. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to go up here, and just like how I made the label display an outlet, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to make this an outlet as well. So I'm just going to click here and control and drag. Okay, just like that. I'm going to make an outlet. I'm going to call it calc display. I'm going to connect. Okay, just like that. Now I can just close this. Okay, so whatever the user is doing, so whatever operation the user is clicking or the numbers they're pressing, what we want is for it to display, to print at the bottom inside the label. So now we've got the calc display. What we're going to do now, just going to go down. What we're going to do, inside the enter, just going to find the enter. Okay, so over here, after here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do calc display. dot text. I'm going to make an optional. And what we're going to do is we're going to add on whatever is inside the display value to whatever is being displayed. I'm going to do display value. And also what I'm also going to do, I'm going to go back to the main storyboard. I'm going to print this enter sign. So I'm going to copy this. Okay, go back here. I'm going to just put that over here. Okay, I'm just going to put a space between here as well. So now when the user clicks on the enter button, for example, if the user does 5, enter, inside the label at the bottom, 5 and that enter symbol will be displayed. Also, it doesn't stop here. Also, we need to display the operation. So just underneath, before the enter underneath here, what I'm going to do is calc display dot text, so plus and equals, and this time we're going to send off the operation as well. So that will be printed, where the user did plus, minus, etc. That's going to be printed over here. I'm going to go a bit more further down, see what else. Okay, so when the user clicks on the all clear, the whole label will disappear. So again, just underneath here, we're going to do calc display dot text equals, going to have the 0. Okay, and also what we need to do is we're also going to display the decimal. So I'm just going to find the decimal function that we created as well. Okay, so what we're going to do, so if user has started typing, just going to go underneath here. I'm going to do calc display dot text equals calc display dot text, and we're going to add the decimal. So we're going to do open bracket decimal. Okay, just like so. And after that, that's all we will have to print inside the label. So I'm just going to save everything. I'm going to run it and I'll show you. We'll see what happens. So I'm going to run this now. And it should instead display inside the label. And then we can work on sending it off to another view controller. So if I do, for example, 5, enter, you see 5, enter is now here. 3, enter, plus, we get our answer 8. So it's all printing off here. So if I do, for example, 5, sin, it's printing off here. If I go on, for example, and I do 9, enter, 2, enter, plus, every time it will display here. This is not really important. We don't really want to see all our calculations, but we're just going to have this here. This is just to, again, send it off to the other view controller. So again, if I click on AC, it will all clear. What I'm also going to do, I'm just going to go back to the main storyboard. I'm just going to remove the text label. I'm just going to remove this from here. I'm just going to have it as empty. Also, if you don't want it to be shown, you can always make it white, for example, and make it transparent with the background. Because like I said, this is just to send it off to the next view controller. So now that we've got that working, we can now move on to the next step. Okay, so to now start sending it off to the next view controller, what I'll need to do, I'm just going to go under here. I'm going to create a label string. I'm going to have it as a string. I'm going to make it empty. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to create an array of strings. I'm going to do var. I'm going to name it calc tape. It's going to be an array, and it's going to be a string. So we've now got our label string and we've now got our calc tape. So I'm just going to go down now, and what I need to do is I need to put also the operations etc. inside the string. So I'm just going to go down to the enter function. I'm going to start off with there first. Okay, so now inside the enter function, what we're going to do is just underneath, I'm just going to copy this actually, paste this here, and we're going to do label string, and we're going to do label string equals label string. Oops, okay, so equals label string, and we're also going to add on the display value. That's the first step. Also, same thing with the operation. I'm just going to go down, and with the operation, so I go underneath here. I'm going to copy this as well. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this here. So I'm going to do label string. I'm just going to do label string plus equals operation. So now again we've assigned the display value and the enter sign to the label string. We've assigned the operation as well to the label string. Also, when the user clicks on the enter button with the operation, it will give them the answer. So if, for example, if the user does 5 enter 5 plus, we'll get the answer. So what we're going to do then is we're going to append it. We're going to do calc tape, which is the array of string that we created, and we're going to append this label string. So every time the user gets the answer, it's going to append it to the array calc tape. And then what's going to do, the label string will start from empty, since it's now appended to the calc tape. So now what we could do then is we can now send off the calc tape to the next view controller to then display it inside there. And this will be done using the storyboard. We're going to create a new view controller. Okay, so to send the data, we're going to use a segue. So first of all, I'm just going to go back to the main storyboard. I'm going to click on my view controller. I'm going to go editor, embed in navigation controller. This will make it easier when it comes to navigating from view to view. Okay, so now we have our view controller. And we're going to get this bar thing at the top. We'll leave that as it is now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the view controller, a new one. I'm just going to drag it. I'm just going to place it just next to it over here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this tape button, and I'm going to control drag to the next view controller. I'm going to click show, and we get this arrow. So this button will link to here. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to drag a text view just so all our history will be displayed inside that text view. So if I can find, okay, I'll use this one. I just want to remove all the Lauren Epsom. Okay, and I'm just going to drag it just like that. Okay, I think I'll just make it a bit more, I'll just make it fit the whole screen. I'm just going to go here, add missing constraints, just so we can get some constraints in it. I'm going to leave the size as it is for now and everything. Okay, so now we have this. And now what I'm going to also do is I'm going to save this. But what I need to do now is I need to create a new view controller for this, so a class for this. And also we need this because we need to send the data off to that new class. So I'm going to do file, new file. I'm going to create a new Swift file, and I'm going to name it calc view controller. I'm going to create. Okay, I'm just going to import UI kit. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to do class. I named it calc view controller. Oops. Okay, and it's a UI view controller. Just going to open and close this. What I'm also going to do now is going to copy the calc view controller through here. Just going to copy this, go back to the new storyboard that I created, click on here, and what I'm going to do, where it says class, I'm going to paste calc view controller. So now this is linked. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to send off the data to the new view controller. Also, as you can see, we get this top bar, and if I just run it, it won't affect your design. So I'm just going to show you how it would look. You can decide to remove this if you wish, but as you can see, it does not affect the design. So we get the bar, but everything else here is perfect. We could also do with this bar, if I just go, for example, just click on this, you can add a title, for example, so I might name it RPN Calculator, just like that. And if I run it, you can see that the title will be displayed at the top like so. So it's up to you if you want to remove it or not. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our view controller. We're not going to work, now we're going to work on sending the data off to the new view controller. So I'm just going to go at the bottom over here. I'm going to create an override function, prepare for segue. So I'm going to do this one. So I'm going to create a constant first of all. So I'm going to do let. I'm going to name it calc view controller. And we're going to call the view controller. So we're going to do calc view controller. We're going to make that destination view controller. So we're going to do segue dot destination view controller as calc view controller. What we're then going to do is we're going to do calc VC, and then we're going to do get tape, and we're going to call the calc tape, which we append the label string. So if I just go up here, as you can see, we appended the label string to the calc tape. We did that, and just for debugging purposes, I'm just going to do print. Oops, calc tape. Okay, so there we have it. So now inside the calculation view controller, we're now going to get the calc tape, and then we can display it inside the new view controller. So first of all, I'm just going to go back to the calc view controller, and we're going to split the screen in half. Okay, we're going to make this in the storyboard. And what I'm just going to do first of all, I'm just going to go here, and I'm going to control drag, and I'm just going to name this calc tape. And so UI text view, I'm going to have it as an outlet. I'm then going to create the variable get tape, which of course will be an array of strings. We're going to pass it on. Okay, just like so. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to create an override, and it will be the view did load. So I'm just going to load the data inside here. I'm going to do function view did load, and inside I'm going to do super view did load. Okay, so now what we need to do is every time obviously the user has their data, we want to, instead of having it all in one big row, we want to split it up into sentences depending. So if the user does 5 enter 5 plus, which is 10, on a new line it will have 3 enter 3 minus, for example, so we won't have it all in one line. To do this, I'm going to do for line in get tape. I'm going to do calc tape dot text equals calc tape dot text plus line, and we're going to do backslash r backslash n, just like that. Okay, and then it's going to go down. Okay, I think that's what we have. So I'm just going to save this, and we're going to run this and see what we have. I'm just going to run this now, and we'll see if the data is being sent off to the next view controller. So what I could do is 5 enter 5 plus. We'll also do, let's do 9 cost, for example. If I click on tape, you can see here we get our history calculations. So if I go back, and this time I'll do 9 enter 5 plus, I'll do 7 enter 2 plus, do tape. As you can see, now our history calculations is being displayed here, and what's also nice is we get this thing at the top. We can go back and forth, so go back to tape and back to forth. So in this video I've shown you how to do the calculations, the sine, cos, tans, as well as the tape. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I'll be putting the source code all in the description below, so it will be inside my GitHub account, so you can download it and access it. Also, I mean, this application could go further. You can make massive improvements, for example, such as having a clear button. You can clear all the data. So yeah, again, I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to further videos. Thank you.